He wiped the mud off with his thumb, and there was a face looking back at him. Not a coin, not a buckle, a face, cast in bronze, half buried in a field near a village called Crosby Garrett in Cumbria in May of 2010. He was using a metal detector on private farmland, the kind of ordinary weekend a few thousand people across Britain have every year. Most of them find ring poles and shotgun cartridges. He found the front half of a human face that had been sitting in that soil for around 1,800 years. He kept digging. It did not come up whole. It came up in more than 30 pieces, crushed flat, the metal folded in on itself like paper. There was no sword nearby, no coins, no brooches, nothing else Roman scattered around it to suggest a wider hoard. Just one object, alone, smashed, and buried on its own for reasons nobody can prove. He did what the law in England and Wales asks a finder to do. He reported it. And that single decision, to report something that had no gold and no silver in it at all, put this discovery on a completely different legal track than almost every other treasure story you have heard. You already know the shape of those other stories. A field in Staffordshire gives up thousands of pieces of gold and silver war gear, and because it is gold and silver, the Treasure Act switches on automatically. A coroner declares it treasure, and a museum gets the right to buy it at a price set by independent experts. A field in Suffolk gives up gold jewelry and silver coins. Same law, same outcome, same protection. Precious metal is the trigger. It has been the trigger since 1996. This was bronze, copper alloy, worth a great deal as scrap and worth almost nothing under the statute that was supposed to protect exactly this kind of find. The Treasure Act of 1996 defines treasure by metal content, or by an object being found alongside other treasure. A single bronze helmet, on its own, crushed, with no gold anywhere on it, simply does not meet the definition. Not because anyone was careless, because the law was never written with an object like this one in mind. That meant something very specific. The helmet belonged to the landowner, not to the nation, not automatically to any museum. The finder and the landowner had done everything right, and the outcome was that Britain's national collections had no legal claim to buy it first, no fixed valuation process, no guaranteed seat at the table. If they wanted it, they would have to compete for it, in public, against anyone else with money. The fragments went to conservators, and what came out of restoration was not just a helmet. It was a face, young, beardless, with softly curled hair beneath a peaked cap, styled in a way that echoes Hellenistic Greek sculpture more than typical Roman military kit. Sitting on top of the cap was a griffin, wings raised, crouched as if about to spring, its ears pricked forward. Cavalry helmets like this were not built for the battlefield. They belonged to a Roman tradition called hippica gymnasia, tournament displays where cavalry units performed choreographed exercises in full ceremonial dress, faces hidden behind masks like this one, showing off horsemanship rather than fighting for their lives. Only a small number of full face and griffin helmets like it are known to exist from Roman Britain. Experts researching it could point to 2 comparable examples. That was it. 2. That rarity is exactly what pulled Tully House Museum in Carlisle into a fight it could not fully control. The helmet was going to auction at Christie's in London in October of 2010, and Tully House wanted it kept close to where it was found, on public display in Cumbria. They launched a public fundraising campaign, asking ordinary people to help buy back a piece of their own regional history, and thousands of pounds came in from people who would never otherwise bid at a London auction house. The estimate before the sale was somewhere in the hundreds of thousands of pounds. Everyone in that room, and everyone watching from Cumbria, was about to find out how wrong that estimate was. The bidding did not slow down anywhere near where the museum's campaign had planned for. It kept climbing, past the estimate, past what a regional museum with a public appeal could realistically match, and it kept going. Tully House stayed in as long as they could, then they had to stop. The hammer came down at £2.3 million. With fees added on top, the final price came to roughly $3.6 million. The winning bid did not come from a name in the room. It came down a phone line to a bidder who has never been publicly identified. For a moment, the reporting genuinely did not know who had just bought a piece of Roman Britain. The museum that had spent months asking the public for donations to keep this object nearby had just watched it disappear to an anonymous voice on a telephone. The reaction was immediate, and it was angry in a specific direction. Commentators and heritage groups pointed at the gap in the Treasure Act, the fact that a discovery this significant, this rare, this clearly important to the story of Roman Britain could leave the country entirely legally, with no requirement that anyone even disclose who now owned it. To a lot of people, that felt like a loss dressed up as a private sale. It is worth being fair to the other side of that argument, because nobody broke any law here. The finder reported the discovery exactly as required. The landowner held clear legal title to something found on their own land. Christie's ran a transparent public auction. Every single step was lawful, open, and above board. The uncomfortable truth is not that anyone cheated the system. It is that the system was never built to catch something exactly like this. Bronze, singular, without a scrap of precious metal on it, and yet more culturally significant than plenty of things the law does protect automatically. The buyer's identity has never been confirmed publicly. There has been plenty of speculation over the years about who might be behind that phone bid, but none of it rises above rumor, and this is a story that does not need invented certainty to be worth telling straight. What can be confirmed is quieter and, in its own way, more hopeful. The helmet has not vanished from view entirely. It has been loaned out for exhibition on more than one occasion since the sale, including a return loan back to Tully House itself, the very museum that lost the bidding war, letting the public in Cumbria see the face they had tried to keep for good, even if only for a while. The case did not disappear from policy conversations either. For years afterward, Crosby Garrett became the example people reached for whenever they argued the Treasure Act needed to change, the reference point for what could slip through a law built around precious metal content. In 2023, that law was finally amended, broadening the definition of treasure to capture finds of outstanding historical or cultural significance, even when there is no gold or silver involved. It came too late to change what happened to this helmet. It exists, at least in part, because of what happened to it. Somewhere, there is a bronze griffin sitting on a bronze face, in a private collection nobody has ever confirmed the location of, purchased under rules that have since been rewritten specifically because of what it exposed. The next time a metal detector goes off in a quiet field, the question this case leaves behind is simple. Rarity clearly deserves protection, so why did it take losing this one to write that into the law?